For Friday, you are going to have in the collections and a chance to handle specimens. So you'll be doing two different things. First, we're going to start off with a demonstration from John about preserving amphibians and reptiles. So he's going to actually have things out to show you. He wants you to take a look at this document first, which is from the University of Michigan Museum of Zoology. And this is on their herp collection page. So in this, it gives you the steps for preservation right here. So steps for preservation of specimens. There are 5 of them basically. And then it goes into detail on them. So I want you to read through this, knowing that you're going to have a demonstration. So some of it will make more sense on Friday. Under euthanizing, they point out that reptiles and amphibians are different in terms of euthanization. There are 3 methods for reptiles and 2 for amphibians. They don't talk about freezing. John will talk about freezing, which is the method that we prefer here because we have access to a freezer. We're not usually in the field. Don't worry about the details too much. You don't need to memorize all of this. I just want you to know that there are different types of methods and more or less what they're like. Then they're going to talk about preserving solutions. So you guys heard about formalin and alcohol. I think you will know that formalin is the preferred method. If you do preserve in alcohol, we have concerns about rotting. So specimens need to be watched for rotting if you're fixing in alcohol. We preserve in alcohol, but we fix with formalin. Then they move on to preparation here, which probably should have been bolded. And they say the most satisfactory method here is injection, right? And then they're going to go through and talk to you about how you inject for every different type of specimen here. And John is going to demo this on at least one different major herp type. I'm not sure which one. So what I want you to do is skim through this, and I want you to just know what to be wary of, right? So right up here in frog and toad, it says, be wary of having the specimen look bloated. You don't want it to look bloated. Do you or do you not need to inject legs versus abdomen? So that's the kind of stuff just to read through and get an idea. Pay attention here to this figure here where it talks about what body position do you use for a snake versus this looks like a salamander. Here we have a frog in figure 4. So you want to know that, what kind of position. And I have, they talk about labels and records here. You guys know this stuff. We've already talked about labels and records. You know that if there isn't any data, it's not very useful to us. They're going to mention about months, right? They're going to tell you again, please don't write out months as numbers. Write them out as the abbreviation or the whole word even. They're also, let's see if I can find where that is. They're also going to talk about using, let me scroll back up. It's a little bit hard to find. I'm going to talk about the type of ink you use. Your micron pens are sufficient. And they're going to talk about where to affix the tags. So look at that. You want to know where the tags are and what the body position is. You can always refer back to something like this when you're actually fixing something. What I really want you to think about though is why. Why do you want them to be in this particular position? And so that's going to be explained somewhere around here. So make sure you know whys. I care a lot about why. Skim, 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 skim down through here. Skim, skim, skim. There's talking more about the position that the specimen should be in. So we keep on skimming. They talk about storage here. Right? They're going to say preferring glass jars or coated metal. So you want to pay attention to that. And then they're going to mention, what do you do if you think a specimen is rotting? That's important. That's something you'll be checking for also. And then you just skim to the end, very quick. Nice, easy read there. Okay. Now we're going to go into the next document here, and that is your draft document of our own museum's handling guides. So this is a document that is not completely finished. You'll see there are typos and there are incomplete sections. But what I want you to pay attention to, besides that, is how are you careful in the collections? We will be handling specimens on Friday. After the demo with John, we're going to go into bird and mammal, and we are going to line drawers and organize the specimens on the trays. So I want you to be familiar with these general rules about working in the collections, right? I've already got them highlighted yellow, sorry about that. But and it's not just that I want you to know the rules, I want you to know the spirit of the rules. Why don't you bring food and drink into the collections? What is arsenic? Why are you careful about it? Why do you wash your hands before and after the collections? Before and after handling collections. If you know the spirit, not just the rule, you're more likely to not mess up. So think critically as you're reading, and that's basically one of the things I'm always telling you as I'm doing these reading guides. So here, these are our collection types. You want to know what our collections are here. This is something you could be asked at some point. They're going to describe our different collections. You want to know the relative size and strengths of the collections. Mammalogy here is about 4,000 specimens, ornithology about 5,000. This will reinforce what you learned on the tour. Here's a question for you. Taxidermied birds. What's the difference between a taxidermied bird and a skin or a research specimen? What does a red tag mean, and why is it important that you are careful with anything with a red tag? You keep moving down. You're reading about the collections. You know that we have a tissue collection. In our next unit, we will be focusing a lot on agents of deterioration, so don't worry too much about that now. Then we keep going. We've got where our collections are located. You don't need to memorize the room numbers. Don't worry about that. Now here we get into adding new collections. So here's another rule. If it's not accessioned, it should not be in the collection. Anything that was out of a collection should be quarantined. We talk again about detention right here. And you want to know why we mothball the detention centers. You're going to want to look in the collections to find the detention centers when you're in there on Friday. Now on Friday, we are going to be arranging specimens in trays. You must know how they are organized and why you line the trays. So there's a little bit here about how to arrange them, and then for each collection, it's described again down here, mammals, and then down here, birds. So I want you to know this. You might as well print this document out. We don't have 13 copies of these in the collections, and you are most likely going to want to refer back to it. So I suggest print this off and bring it with you. We're not going to be arranging anything in herpetology at this point, but you can take a look at that anyway. Now we get to how to catalog a specimen. You're not going to be cataloging on Friday. You will start cataloging on Monday, though. So I'm going to talk about this, and you can read it for Friday. It will also be useful, but more likely you're going to want this for Monday. Okay, so you're going to want to have good handwriting. Here are the steps for cataloging specimens, and then the steps are described in more detail. So they're going to talk about labels, and they're going to talk about what types of pens to use. Your micron is perfect, that's why you have it. And then here we have the paper labels, okay? You want to know what information should be on the labels. We've talked about this, we've read about this, you know this, but this is an actual label to look at, just so that before you come into the collections, you've got an idea of what you're going to see on our labels. It talks about where you should be attaching the labels. So as you're organizing the collections, take a look and see, are the labels in the right places according to what we strive for? Okay, there is a section here that talks about the difference between accessioning and cataloging. This is going to be an important distinction to know. You'll certainly want to know that for Monday. When we start cataloging. And then just kind of skim through this. We're going to spend a lot more time on that for Monday. And I wanted to point out that we have our collection codes here and subcodes. And this is one reason you might want to print this document out, because I don't expect you to memorize this, but you may need to refer to it anyway. This talks about the alternative numbers that you might come across in the collection. You're not going to be assigning numbers yet, but you can just skim through this kind of stuff so you're prepared. Now we get to climate monitoring. You can stop here. We will have a whole section on monitoring in the museum and agents of deterioration, so don't worry about that. So that's all you have for reading for Friday. Pretty quick, pretty easy reads, but really important things to look at so that you're prepared to come into the collections and start working. Okay, looking forward to Friday, hands-on. See you then.